Hey, I'm Alex Rackle from Board Game Co., and this is games leaving the collection for the month of October. We have another batch of games leaving. That's how this series works. Every single month, a bunch of games leave. Every single month, a bunch of games get added. Make sure to check out the sister video to this series where I talk about the games I'm adding to my collection every single month. It usually goes up, 4, 5, 6, 7 days later than this video does for that particular month. As usual, before we dive into this, a few general notes. The first note is, if you are a member over on Ko-Fi or over on Patreon, I do give away some of the games from these videos every single month, which I'm remembering now. I don't think I've picked the winners for last month. I need to go do that now because I need to go do that now. I'm going to do that after this video. I'm going to go over on Patreon and do that, and Ko-Fi and do that. But either way, I give away some of these games every single month to members over on Patreon and Ko-Fi, so if you are over there, it's a great way to get free games. Also, please join to support the channel as opposed to getting free games, but free games are a nice side effect as well. Secondly, and more importantly, secondly and importantly, the usual disclaimer that I play a lot of games every single year. I play roughly 300 plus new games every single year, which means not all games can stay, and games do have to cycle in and out in order to maintain that kind of lifestyle. It's just the practical reality of I can't add 300 games to my collection every single year, no matter how much I like them. To that end, this series always has games leaving, and very often has games that I like leaving the collection, and very often that can engender the conversation of, you just gave that game a 4 to 5 and now it's leaving. Yes, that will happen. Very good games will leave, unfortunately. It's not about me not liking those games, it's about me trying to find the combination of games that I like enough and get tabled enough that they're worth sticking around. In today's video, there's at least one game that I'm really upset about, and then a bunch that, we have 15 games leaving today, 15 games leaving. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of them are just kind of passing through. They're not really games that stuck in my collection. And then from the other 7 that are off camera over here, 2 of them I haven't played, and then a few of them, 2 of them I'm not as upset about, and I think at least 2, maybe 3 of them, hard decisions have to be made. So in general, if you watch the channel, if you watch reviews, and if you're like, I thought you liked that game, sometimes I do, games have to leave because of the volume of games that I try to table, keep, and play. In any case, let's go ahead and start off. We're going to start off with the games that are passing through. There's a bunch of easy pass-throughs over here, games that just don't need to be added to my collection, and when I say passing through, it just means that it's a game that I tabled and then decided that after tabling it, I don't feel the need to add it to my collection. Never got technically added, it just, just showed up, played it, and then moved on from. I'm going to start off with a bunch of small box games, starting off with Quartz over here. Quartz from Lucky Duck is a game of rolling dice and then Yahtzee-style re-rolling dice to try to get the results you need to gather gems and or steal gems and or lock your gems into a safe so that they're safe. It's not good. I don't like Quartz. I didn't find Quartz to be that compelling. It's not a bad game. I just don't think, this to me feels like a very, very mass market title. It's got a nice shiny art. It's got gems you're pulling from a bag, and the gameplay I find to be completely underwhelming given the types of games that we put out. Given the types of games Lucky Duck puts out, I found Quartz to be very underwhelming. It's very rare for me to be that critical of a game. More often than not, I'm good, better, best, and then under good there's an umbrella of that was fun, but was it good enough? I'm dismissive of Quartz. It takes a lot for me to be dismissive. Sorry, Lucky Duck, Quartz is not for me. We have Biomos from North Star Games, a fine game, a totally fine game. I enjoyed Biomos. It's a cute little puzzle of trying to gather these little tokens and try to order them to kind of cash in on cards. It's a cute little puzzle. It didn't wow me. I've had fun with it. I do not need to own it. Biomos, definitely worth trying, but I don't know if it's necessarily a immediate must-get recommendation, at least not for me. From there, we have Dungeon Draft from Upper Deck over here. Dungeon Draft is designed by Ascension. Gary? Is it Gary? I think it's Gary. No, Justin Gary. Not Gary. It's Justin Gary. Designed by Justin Gary, Dungeon Draft is a drafting game which you're going to draft a bunch of cards from weapons to the various enemies you're fighting to the allies on your team, and then you have some overarching goals and play that you're working your way towards as well across, I believe, 4 rounds of play. It might be 3, but I think it's 4. But in the game, you kind of start off not being able to afford most of the cards, and as the game goes on, you're able to afford more and more. It's about getting kind of everything to work together well as you draft these cards. I had fun with it. It's a fine game. I just think there are better drafting games out there. This is quick playing, fast, easy, again, totally fine. Not a wowing game, not a game that wows me, but a game that I've definitely had fun playing, and I just don't need to table or keep. Well, I don't need to keep. I'm happy to table it. From there, we go into another 3 small box games before we move into the bigger ones. Again, this will move by fairly quickly on the smaller ones. ones. We'll probably spend some more time on the ones that are reluctantly leaving. We have Flash 10 over here. Flash 10 is from Devere over here. It's a cute little game of trying to line up a sequence of 10 cards. The Flash part is some cards can go over your... Well, actually, I don't know why it's called Flash, probably because of speed, but we have Lightning Bolt cards, so I kind of assume the same. We have Lightning Bolt cards that go over the cards that cost you points, but help you finish your row, so you can possibly force your way into a lower score, but triggering the other players to not yet be ready for it. I think it's a cute little game, kind of has vibes of 10 Days in America or Racco or any of those kinds of games in terms of the sequencing you're trying to create. I think those games are more clever. This adds a real-time element, which I don't know if I necessarily feel the need for. It is cute, it is fun, I just think there are better games for this type of sequencing that the game does, and Flash 10. It's quick to play, easy to play. I'm just going to play 10 Days in America instead. From there we have Hissy Fit, another small box game. A bunch of these were in a small box game review roundups. I do those small box game review roundups on a regular basis. But Hissy Fit is a game about trying to deal with your pets and all their various quirks and antics and all that. This game is like popping out. What's popping out? Is it just the cards? No, it's the cat token. I need to go ahead and layer. I'm going to, excuse me here while I move a few cards over there. And now that should lay flat. Now that balancing is perfect. Anyways, Hissy Fit, it's a game about managing your cat's moods in different ways. Ultimately, it's a cooperative game of playing cards against the various Hissy Fit cards that are coming out, and whenever you play a card, you can choose a player to play cards with that symbol as well. So it's all about trying to gather cards and then play into a nice strong turn to be efficient on your actions, while being mindful of the various threats that are piling up. So there's a little bit of a balance of trying to figure out what to do and when. It's cute, it's fine, didn't wow me, but certainly had fun with it. Then we have Parks Roll and Hike. Not a bad game, but also disappointing to me personally. Parks Roll and Hike is a game I was very much looking forward to because Parks, and I love, I like Henry, I like Keymaster Games, I like Parks, but Henry being the designer, and I was excited for this one because of all those combinations of things. Ultimately, for me, it left me wanting. There are many amazing roll and write games out there, and for me, Parks Roll and Hike didn't feel amazing. It felt fine. Like, had this game come out 7 years ago, I might have loved it. I might have been like, wow, it's so much fun. But given the landscape of roll and write games that come out, given the different ways you can build roll and write games, whether it's just a variety of gameplay experience, whether it's the cascading bonuses, I feel Parks Roll and Hike kind of was a little light on the variety. There are different parks you can go through, but they only had a minor change to the game. And then the cascading bonuses felt a little bit too much by the numbers for me. It didn't feel innovative or inspiring. It felt passably okay. I'm sure there are a lot of people who enjoy this. I think this is a good game. I just think that we live in a landscape of amazing roll and write games, and this is merely good. So Parks Roll and Hike, disappointing to me, primarily because I wanted to like this one a lot more. That's all the small box games we have for you today, which brings us to the bigger box experiences. We have two over here. I don't know if either one, well, one of them is surprising. One of them I kind of expected to like. The other one I wasn't quite sure. Both of them I wanted to like. We have Thunder Road Vendetta over here. Thunder Road Vendetta from Restoration Games. It just doesn't wow me. This is a game that has been lauded by so many people. And if you watch my review on the game, you can check out the review. There are a lot of people who are in the comments who are like, because I made a point of saying in the review, this is just the base game. I have not played any of the extras. And there are a lot of people in the comments being like, well, you can't review just the base game. You have to get all the extras. And I'm like, well, then Restoration Games shouldn't sell just the base game. They should sell it as a package deal. Whenever a game company puts anything on the box or chooses how to sell a game, they are responsible for what happens next. If you say your game is 2 to 4 players and it doesn't work great at 2, and someone plays it at 2 and then goes around talking trash about the game, that's on you, the publisher, for putting a player count on the box that the game is not actually good at. You could say 3 to 4 players with a 2-player variant. You could say something like that, but you got to make it clear when a game is not being sold in its ideal fashion, or it's on you as the creator. So don't get me wrong, I'm sure a lot of people do play the base game and think it's great, but to all the people who are like, well, you have to play the expansion content, I hear you, but this was already like an $80 game for the base game, and I just don't feel the need to I don't feel the need to force myself to try to hunt down more content for this game to try to experience the wonder that is Thunder Road Vendetta. So again, I don't know what to tell you. As far as my experience with the game, as base game alone, I thought Thunder Road Vendetta was too chaotic to be a good... No, sorry. Let me say this correctly. There's too much strategy and gameplay going on for it to be a party game, and it's too chaotic for it to be a strategy game. So for me, it straddles the road between the two, and most of the time, I'd rather play a strategy game or a party game. Now, don't get me wrong, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I have had fun playing Thunder Road Vendetta, but I find almost always I enjoy the process a little bit, and the closer it comes to the end, the more I'm like, I don't know. I don't know why I did that. I could have played other games that I preferred instead, because I feel a complete lack of any sense of agency as I play this game. It's barely a racing game. It's a blow things up and watch who dies first game, where the game kind of forces you to just attack whoever is possibly winning until everyone is properly blown up and someone sneaks through the win. And no, this is not me saying this is a bitter person who never wins. I've won this game. My first game playing it, I won it. It just wasn't just satisfying. Like I remember the first time I played this game, and I sat down and I raced through the whole thing, and I got to the end and I won, and at no point did I feel a single sense of, what do you want to call it? No point did I feel a single sense of accomplishment. I felt like the win wasn't earned. It was reluctantly handed to me because everyone else got stopped first. And so that's not a good feeling. I'd almost rather lose and feel like it wasn't fair that you won. When I win and I feel no sense of accomplishment over it, that really deflates the game experience for me. I'm happy there are a lot of people who love this game. I thought I would be one of them. It turns out I'm not. Thunder Vendetta is a fine experience for me. And again, this is a well-loved game, so do your research and check it out if you are interested in it, and apparently buy all the expansion content, not just the base game, because that's not good enough, apparently. According to some people, not according to everyone. Anyways, lastly in the games passing through, we have Heroes of Might and Magic 3, the board game. Did some sponsored content around this one, so I had a chance to table it and play it. I think this is not a bad game at all. I think there's fun things going on here. My biggest problem with it is that it is a massive big box game, and if I'm going to choose between this and Mage Knight's currently going to stay for right now. This is a big box, intimidating experience, giving you a lot of content, and I'm someone who has FOMO. If I want a game, I kind of want all of it, and you're like, you just set up a Thunder Road Vendetta. No, make no mistake. Had I liked Thunder Road Vendetta, I would have gotten all of it. What I'm not willing to do is go and buy all of it after not liking the base game. Different conversation. But with Heroes of Might and Magic, if I wanted it, I would want all of it. I'd want to get every single thing because I want all the stuff for games I love. And this is a game where I can't imagine having all the stuff because I think it would be overwhelming and a pain and frustrating to deal with as you wander from location to location, trying to remember all the different locations your characters go to and all the different things they do and referencing 7 different rule books. I think it is a fine game. I had fun playing it. I think there is a lot to like here. There's the modes of play. It's basically an exploration game where you're wandering around the map and then engaging in various locations, either in cooperative, competitive, or solo gameplay modes, possibly going through campaign modes. There's a ton of content for this game. Ultimately, all of it worked well, and none of it wowed me enough to feel it was worth powering through the amount of cost and shelf space and mixing and matching of all the game stuff to be able to dive into it. So for me, this joins Euthia, because like there's Euthia, Heroes of Might and Magic, and Mage Knight that all feel samey in terms of what they're trying to do. Euthia and Heroes of Might and Magic to me kind of feel a bit more similar in the sense that they're not good enough for me to power through what's there. They are good games. I've enjoyed them all. But for me, Mage Knight is the only one that I still feel the desire to power through. Although even that, honestly, that's a game I don't table it enough, that even that is a game that I wonder if it's staying in my collection forever or not. We'll see. We'll find out. That's going to be the 7 games that are kind of more passing through, which brings us to the 8 games that are actually leaving my collection, with 2 asterisks, because 2 of them are unplayed games. Well, 2 of them are unplayed, but they... Anyways, we'll get to it. We'll get to it all. So let's go ahead and start this off, starting off with... I guess we're going in the order it's stacked in because I don't have a choice. We're going to start off with Godtear over here from Steamforged Games. I like Godtear. I think Godtear is great. You may have seen content on this game a while ago with Devin, maybe a year and a half ago on the channel. Godtear, all my miniatures are in this box. I have like a bunch of the 2 base sets over here. I have a bunch of the expansions all thrown together in these boxes. I can't be bothered to keep all the boxes. Godtear is a skirmish game. I think it's 2 to 4 player. No, it's actually 2 player. I was going to say it's 2 to 4 with like maybe... Actually, I don't know. Can you get more players? It might just be 2 players. I've only ever played with 2 players, and I think it's obviously designed as a 2-player experience. But it's a skirmish game which has objectives and different teams of characters, and you're trying to basically try to accomplish objectives while trying to play to your character's strengths and be mindful of the other team as you plant your flags, do your things, kill enemies, all that fun stuff. I compared it to oh my gosh, I compared it to what's it called? Super Fantasy Brawl at the time, and in terms of the fact that both skirmish games with objectives and all that, and I think Super Fantasy Brawl is easier to dive into, and I think Godtear is more rewarding. The problem is, and I think I said this at the time, but it has held true, I've only played this game like twice in the past year, and I don't know how frequently I will play it. Godtear is just a game that the biggest problem I have is I don't play this kind of game consistently with the same people. My game group tends to favor higher than 2-player games when you're playing competitively. 2-player games cooperatively happens all the time. Competitively, we tend to be more focused on larger player counts for competitive experiences, and so 2-player games like this get tabled infrequently. They do get tabled. I have others in my collection, Rum and Bones, I don't know if it'll ever leave, but these kinds of games, like Rum and Bones is a good example. I think anytime I'm going to pull out Godtear, I would rather pull out Round Bones. It's more to my personal taste. Godtear is a great game. I highly recommend it if you like two-player head-to-heads. I highly recommend it if you like skirmish games. I just think for me, this style of game doesn't get played enough that I don't know if there'll ever be one of these that really, really thrives for me. I mean, even Simon, who they're going to be coming back with Super Fantasy Brawl at some point, I don't know what my experience with that's going to be, because of course I'll be tempted for more stuff, new stuff, but like, I don't know. Even then I don't know, because Super Fantasy Brawl is easier to table with new players. Godtear, I kind of want to table with repeated players because there's a higher experience cap and learning all the stuff. And so I don't know where that leaves me. But for right now, it leaves Godtear as unfortunately leaving the collection. I'm not happy about it. Just hard decisions have to be made. From there, we're going to have Mille Fiori over here. Mille Fiori, another tough one to get rid of. This one is technically not leaving my immediate circle, I assume. See, I haven't actually checked, but I know that Meg likes this game enough that I'm pretty sure she'll snatch it up, which is fine. I've played this one enough that I feel I've seen what Mille Fiori does. In fact, this is the tricky part, and now that I'm thinking about it, honestly, if Meg doesn't take it, I might hold on to it, because I think there are plans to theoretically bring an expansion at some point, and if they have an expansion, I would love to table it. I like Mille Fiori. It's a good game. It's just a good game that I've played enough that I feel I've gotten a sense of how the game plays and the strategies I'm going for. It doesn't feel drastically different as you play it more. This game, like Caesar's Empire before it, are games that I feel are good pass-throughs in my collection. They're games that I enjoyed, I played, I pulled out here and there, and now I'm kind of like, you know what? There's always a new wave of hotness and interesting things coming through, and at any given point, I choose where to spend my time on those different games. And so for right now, Mille Fiori, it's still a good game. I still like it. I gave it a 4 out of 5, and I hold by that. It is a good game that I really enjoy. Again, at this point in my collection, unless you're a 4.5, you're not necessarily safe. Even 4s are sometimes going straight away out the door, and other times going out the door after a period of time. In the case of Mille Fiori, I like this game. I want to play the expansion, but I don't need to. I feel I've played enough of the base game that I don't need to hold on to it for right now. From there, we have one of two that I haven't played. This is going to be War of the Ring, whatever you call it, second edition, I guess, not Battles from Middle-earth. Battles in the Lands. No, it's just War of the Ring. War of the Ring. This is War of the Ring, which I've had for a very long time, and I've always wanted to table. In fact, even just this past week at WSBG, I almost had a chance to get it tabled. I feel like this game I've almost tabled so many times, and it just hasn't happened yet. There's still a chance I will table it in the future. I know at Level Up Retreats, shout out to Level Up Retreats, we're going to have our next event in February, feel free to join. But Level Up Retreat last year, someone tried playing with me, and I think they're going to try playing with me again, and I'm still open to it. I want to play it. This copy is blinged out and everything, which, by the way, speaking of games going away, I mean, this copy has all kinds of cool bits. Let me see if I can show you one of these over here. Like, we got all these, like, you know, all the scenery and terrain and fun things. Very, very cool stuff over here. But anyways, War of the Ring, this is completely blinged out and never actually played, and I don't know when that will happen. It goes back to my commentary on two-player games. This, again, I have Dune War for Arrakis. I like Dune War for Arrakis, and I don't know how I feel about War of the Ring. I have heard others say that Dune War for Arrakis is shorter, and that means it is going to be easier to get a table, although it may or may not be given the same experience. And I will say, thematically, I prefer the story, the theme of War of the Ring. So I may regret this one day. We'll see. But I've had this game in my collection for like 7 years and not played it in that time. And at a certain point, you have to give up. And it's been a long time coming for this one. And even now I feel bad. I was really excited to actually table this weekend because I was like, oh, and now I'll know if I should keep it or not. But it is what it is. Things have to go. Time has to move on. And this is a game that, even though I haven't played it, I do kind of consider it in my collection because of how long I've had it and tried to table it. And so this is leaving. I'm not criticizing it. I'm giving up on it. Speaking of games I'm giving up on, this next one probably should be in the passing through, not games leaving the collection. It's always hard to gauge it when I haven't actually played a game, but I don't think the next one earns a spot of having been there for 7 years, tried to table. I'm going to shift it to this pile over here. That's going to be Small City Deluxe Edition over here from Alban Viard over here from Alban Viard Game Studio, I guess, or not. But this is a Small City. This is one of the few games that I would say I regret backing. Now, regret backing is and that's not against the game. I haven't played this game, but specifically, when I say I regret backing something, the tricky part is, if I didn't like a game after playing it, that doesn't mean I regret backing it. That means, had I known what I know now, I wouldn't have backed it. But I didn't know what I knew when I backed it, so I can't possibly regret my decisions. My decisions made sense at the time. So not liking a game, having the value tank on a game, any of these things that you know after the fact, don't change my decision as to should I or should not have backed it at the time. In the case of Small City, this was a FOMO back. And I don't usually do FOMO backs, but I definitely did a FOMO back on this one. And I was like, you know what? It seems cool. I'll go ahead and spend the $100 on it, and I will definitely table it. And I definitely haven't tabled it. But more importantly, at no point since I've had it have I felt the desire to table it outside of any sense of checking it off the list. When I have games in my collection that I haven't played, some of them are going to be games that most of them are going to be games I want to table. I got them for a reason. Whether I bought them or their review copy, I said yes to them for a reason. Small City, I have not felt the desire to play this game at all since it showed up, and that is a very, very rare thing for me. Now, I've held on to it for a year plus because I was like, I spent money on it, I should try it and all that, but at this point, I think it's sunk cost fallacy. Don't get me wrong, I'll turn around and sell it, or one of you will get it, depending, and I'll get some of my money back. It's not one that's held its value, but I will not lose a ton on it. But we'll see how it goes. But ultimately, this is one that I regret backing, and not as a criticism against the game, the design, or the company. In fact, I think it's a well-rated, well-liked game, but because I shouldn't have backed it at the time. It was FOMO talking. It was a last-minute decision. I was like, you know what? I want in on this game. I don't know why. I don't know what it was. I have so many games in this genre. I have so many Euro games that do call my name, and this one didn't call my name. I think it was a 100% FOMO back. I'm a big fan of crowdfunding. I back less than I used to, but I still back games, and I usually back games that I'm passionate about, and when they come, I'm excited. There are games that have shown up in the past few weeks that I'm mad that I have other things on my plate because I want to play those games, and that's a good feeling. I won't always be able to table everything. I have too many games, both in my collection and coming through at any given point. I will always have to make choices, but I should want to play the games. Otherwise, why do I have them? And this one, I just don't have that. I don't have that ren, that excitement, that fire in me to go out and table it. And so a year later, I'm giving up on that fire and moving on from it. Next up over here, we have a tricky one. This is, it's heavy. It's Zoo Tycoon, the board game. Zoo Tycoon is a great game. This is one of those games that, again, when I talk about or give disclaimers at the beginning of the video of like, oh, well, you know, you rated that game and accidentally getting rid of it. I gave Zoo Tycoon a 4. We have Mille Fiori, I gave it 4, but I think that Mille Fiori I have more regrets about not keeping. I just have to make space for things. Zoo Tycoon is harder for me to really gauge where it's going to go, because this is a game that I played the prototype, I liked the prototype, then it showed up, I didn't really have a chance to play it until they sent over the expansion for the new content, so I played it with the new content and the expansion, and the new content's great. It's a good game. My biggest problem with Zoo Tycoon, the board game, is there is a lot to actually learn and process, and it's one that so far I've mostly just played it with the same 2 people every single time. It's not one that gets tabled, it's not one that I want to teach new people to. It's not teach new people. It's not the one I want. It's not one I want to teach to new people. There's a lot going on in the game. In fact, my biggest critique at the time and now is that people who see Zoo Tycoon might want to buy this, and if you're just buying it based off that, you are probably the wrong audience for this game. This is a much heavier game than you would think at first glance. There is a fun market in there. There's fun building out your zoo. If you are someone who's both a heavy gamer and there for the magic of Zoo Tycoon, this is probably a game worth tabling. For me, it is a very good game that I am going to prioritize other games over, especially when you factor in teaching new people. In fact, a regular thing for me, by the way, with these games leaving the collection videos, in fact, it's going to be relevant to our last thing we talk about soon. We're not up to the last one. We have 2 more to go. So second last one, shortly, is very often I do find there's a tendency on my end to prioritize the things that have lasted for a very long time, which we'll talk more about, but in the case of, let's say, Zoo Tycoon, or let's say other Euros. Coimbra is a Euro in my collection that has stood the test of time for a very, very long time, and I don't see Coimbra ever leaving. But I do find that it takes a certain amount of heft for a game to break into that spot before I'm like, you know, you're safe. You are now part of the old guard as opposed to the new guard. Because inevitably, when I'm sitting there, like, looking at something like Zoo Tycoon, what generally will happen is I'll look at Zoo Tycoon and be like, you know what? The last 7 times I had a chance to play a game, I played one of my old Euros that I love. I didn't pick one of the new Euros. It does happen that new Euros can become old Euros as they get tabled, as they get played more. Let me just even look around right now. Let's see, what's a game that I have in mind when I say something like this? So, not that one. These are other old titles. I'm just looking for games. Revive. Revive's a good example. Revive, I've gotten Revive tabled so much that at this point, despite being a new Euro in my collection, it has mentally moved into the old Euro camp. A game for me has to get a certain amount of plays in and be picked frequently enough and repeatedly enough that I look at it and think, you know what? When it's time to play a mid to midweight Euro game or whatever genre the game is, you're part of the crew that I'm picking. With something like Zoo Tycoon, more often than not, because of that rules teach, I usually have only played this one with specific people and not wanting to teach new people, and that does change up how I experience a game. In fact, honestly, Sankori is a game that I love. I gave Sankori a 5 out of 5, and that one is a trickier one because it's not going anywhere. It's totally safe. But it has not shifted to old Euro yet because of the fact that I don't like teaching that game to new people. I've done it because of how much I like it, but that's in a harder one for me. Again, the 5 out of 5 makes it so that it's still safe, and I still table it. Even just this past week, I was talking about playing it. But a lot of it, for me, does come down to, did you get played enough that you are part of the old guard as opposed to the new guard? Anyway, tangents aside, let's move on to the next one over here. This one was always going to leave eventually, and that is the Mandalorian Adventures. Mandalorian Adventures is fun. I enjoyed this game. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I like the general experience of it. For me, ultimately, when I reviewed it, I still have some more games to play. I've played those games, and I feel I've seen enough of this game. It is not a great game. It is not a bad game. It is it's a good implementation of the theme into a board game. And speaking of what I mentioned about Zoo Tycoon, this is a game that if you are someone who's just here because the Mandalorian and board games, you might play this game. Because, I mean, you could play this game. It's not overwhelming. It's not too much. It layers things onto you slowly. And I think it's a good thing when a game does that. When a game knows how to introduce the players to that game slowly, especially if it's a thematic IP that might attract non-gamers. I think The Mandalorian does an excellent job at that. But for me as a gamer, I just wanted to play through enough that I've seen it all, and I feel I've seen it all, so now it's time for me to move on from this. Again, I don't think there's ever a point where this is going to stay, but there certainly was a point where it was in my collection while I enjoyed it. And then moving on to the last one does hurt, and it's kind of a similar story as Zoo Tycoon, but it hurts more because I like it more. And that one, giant box over here coming in, is Scarface 1920. This is a great game. It's a really great game. This one hurts. I think I initially gave it a 4 when I first rated it, and I think I'd probably bump that to a 4.5 at this point. It is a really, really excellent area control, semi-deck building game with great art, great presentation, great everything, but it is a very long game to teach. It is not the hardest game to teach. It's not like, super complicated as far as the gameplay, but there's a lot of things to go through. This is never a short teach, and I always hate that about it, and it does mean that I'm always, always, always reluctant to teach this to people who don't already know the game. And again, there are many games that are like that, but the better you are, the more likely I am to persevere past that and say, you know what, I'm going to make sure this game gets tabled. With a game like Sankori, which I mentioned already, it will happen. I love Sankori. It's great. And also, I think Sankori is distinct enough in terms of the feel I get from it. Sankori is a great game. And this video is not meant to be about Sankori, but it's going to be a little bit about Sankori. Sankori gives you such a tension as you play that it doesn't have drafting, but I love drafting because drafting is not just about what I do, but it's about what I hand you. And Sankori has that in the actions of the game. When I take an action, it's not just about what I choose, it's about which actions am I setting you up for, and that tenseness is beautiful. I love Sankori. It is a very, very hard game to teach, and it's not going anywhere. Scarface, on the other hand, because of that teach aspect, it does mean that whenever I'm tabling a game, and whenever I'm tabling an area control game, I will pick Blood Rage first. I will pick Inish first, or Cyclades first, or Kemet first, or Rurik first. I will pick DEI first. This is in the area control category, and there's enough happening in the game that I don't teach this game. I am happy to play it. I think it's an excellent game, but I do not teach Scarface to new players, and when I'm trying to be critical about what actually gets tabled in my collection and what deserves the shelf space to let new things come in at a given point and what ultimately is going to be shifted out, I think as hard as it is for me to admit it, Scarface 1920 doesn't get tabled as much as I would like, and I almost always favor older area control games over it, and so I still think it's a great game, but it does very much come with that caveat about the length of the teach and the process to get it tabled. And it's not a short game either, so there's a lot of barriers to entry on this, and it's also not light on table space. It's a great game here if you can power past those things, but for me right now, I find I resort to older games instead of powering past those things. So it's a sad one. It's a very sad one, but it is time for it to go. And that is basically what we have for the games leaving the collection. We have 15 games leaving today, 8 in the category of passing through. Again, I'm moving Small City over. 7 in the category of games that are actually leaving my collection. Yes, I'm counting War of the Ring. I've had it for long enough. This is basically your games leaving the collection for the month of October. If you are over on Ko-Fi or Patreon, I will be giving away some of these games like I do every month. And past that, stay tuned for later this month where I'll be talking about the games added to my collection in the month of October. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.